Hey, you're good.
Yeah. After watching the film and after letting it sink in, really happy for my team and my coaches. The effort and preparation they put in yielded a really positive result. Especially happy that the victory was at Scott Stadium. Just feels good to be home, and it felt good for our players and their families, and it was just was a really gratifying experience to see our team and our staff happy. I think there's momentum being generated. I think roots are being established. I think we're making progress, and plenty of room to grow in a lot of areas. I was happy with Hunter Pearson and his kicking of extra points and field goals. That's really a nice step in a positive direction. We did open the competition the past week, and AJ and Hunter went head-to-head, and AJ by slight margin won throughout practice. But I did make the decision after the first miss to switch, and I was proud of Hunter and the way he handled that. Defensively, I think, and watching on film, our plan was very good, but the execution and emotion, not necessarily just how they or what the players did, but how they did it. The defensive players especially were emotional, and they were really invested in their performance and the outcome, and you could tell they wanted to win. Turnovers ultimately were the difference in that game. So our takeaways and then the points yielded, or the points that they accounted for, I thought ultimately was the reason that we won the football game. Bryce made some really timely plays that kept drives alive. We already know about the amazing plays that he made athletically. Kind of a backstory, though, that maybe had me sleep better than anything else was seeing Brennan Armstrong. I really liked what he did when he was out there. The game was not too fast for him. The reads, the poise, and quite frankly, the initiative when he ran, he looked right at home. And as a first year, I was really encouraged by that. So, yeah, that makes me feel better in the event that, something happened to Bryce just when Brennan came in. And what I've seen of him already just in 4 games, in 2 appearances, I really liked what I saw out of him. We have to have more production out of both Hassis and Alameda in the ACC for us to have the success we want. I think we all know that. And we did have some injuries that I'll address. Richard Burney is done for the year. He has a medical condition. He will be fine. He's getting treatment for it. And that's really all I can pass on at this point. And Jordan Mack also suffered an injury and will be out for, looks like, about 6 weeks. So those 2 injuries are the ones of note. No players coming back that I can think of off of injury yet. Yeah, so we're looking forward to our next game, and been working hard on NC State. Very good football team, and we're anxious and up for the challenge.
Is it a given in any football season that your depth will be tested, and how would you kind of assess the magnitude of this challenge with those 2 guys out? And could Malcolm come back this week, or you're still not sure? Still
not sure with that. And best for me to present to you that it's no, so kind of under promise. But where we're counting on him not coming back at the inside linebacker position, that would be Mack, and it would be Cook and Dom Shepard. So 3 of our top 4. But matter-of-factly, Zane Zandier is playing really well, and so we like how he's doing a lot. Rob Snyder now gets an opportunity, who we really liked prior to his injury. So, yeah, depth is tested. Sometimes, man, it all just happens at one spot. And this particular year, it seems like inside linebacker. Defensive line has been another challenge. However, Aaron Famui and Jordan Redmond, and now that Mandy's healthy, Richard is a significant loss. However, the depth that is being established with our first years is certainly going to help.
Bronco back here. Defensively,
You've only given up 16 points all year after halftime. I think it's just one touchdown. Is that adjustments at halftime, or is there an explanation for that?
I would say that the time that I've been together with our defensive staff and what's being seen in real time and what's being communicated in real time kind of builds its way to halftime, which then gives a little bit more time to sort it out, which usually leads to the appropriate changes. Not always, but it usually leads to the appropriate adjustments to give our players the best chance. Every game, you're not quite sure what the opponent is going to do until you see it play out. And a half sometimes is, man, if you don't get it fixed soon enough, it's not fast enough. But each quarter, we seem to be able to dial things in a little closer as to what the opponent is doing, and how our matchups look and what might need to be corrected. So I think it's a result of time together, and I think it's a result of time with our players of knowing what they're capable of, and then how to possibly leverage all that through the second half. That's what I think.
Coach, you guys opened the season against a lot of inexperienced quarterbacks, a lot of mobile quarterbacks. Saturday, you're going to face a 6-year guy in Ryan Finley, who's more of a pocket passer. What have you seen out of Finley, and how does him being a pocket passer affect your defensive game plan?
Yeah, well, it's he throws the ball really well, and he throws it on time, and he throws it to good receivers. And in my opinion, they're a throw-first team in terms of yardage and yield. Doesn't mean they can't run the football, but the ball is moved periodically and systematically through the air. And so he's poised, he's accurate, he's reflective of a player with experience. And if you choose to play any one given coverage, there's usually matchups and talent issues that will eventually catch up with you. And it's very difficult to deceive or show him looks that he probably hasn't seen. So execution matters. And how hard you play certainly matters. And he's seen about everything you can throw at him because of how much they throw the football. So ultimately it will come down to making plays. And I know that's oversimplified, but the execution just gets you to the point where then you still have to make a play on the ball. And so playing the ball and tackling in its simplest form will determine outcome.
See on the depth chart that C.J. Stalker is listed as the backup at both inside linebacker spots. Guy's been here for a while, had pretty good ratings coming into college. What can you say about him?
C.J. is, there's a running joke on our team, much like in an arranged marriage, where I'm not giving him a say as to what he does for his career. He's going to coach on my staff at some point. I've already told him I'm giving him no letters of recommendation for anything else. He can't count on me for any other job than applying for a graduate assistant spot or being a football coach on my staff. I think he's amazing. He's an amazing person. He's an amazing leader. He's tough, and he's completely reliable. And I really like who he is.
He hasn't played very much.
He hasn't. He's currently leading, even though he's been here a long time, leading our defense that plays against our offense, and doing it in a manner like he's preparing to win the ACC championship. And there's nothing about self with him. It's all about team. And so his experience and his knowledge of the game and kind of just who he is, we're counting on to provide the adequate depth necessary to get through that position with the injuries we've had.
Bronco, I think last week you mentioned something about your expanding role as a head coach, and then the other day you were talking about how you had given more responsibility to Nick and what a good job he did calling the plays. Can you just talk about how your role has changed this year?
Yeah. So I believe as organizations and programs grow, there are different stages of growth, and with different stages, if you consider the business world, how the CEO fits in is different year by year. And I think, and I have thought going into this year, and it's still being validated as we go. I can't say it's a finished product, that the best thing I could do to help our program at this time in year 3 was to make myself available to basically influence and advise and coach coaches, and that would expedite the performance at every position room throughout the entire team, not just one side of the ball and not just in such a narrow scope as just that one role. And I'm still getting used to it. I'm still determining the best way to have that influence. But I can tell our offense exactly what the defense is doing and why on any given play, which is knowledge in real time to take advantage of that. I can tell our defense on any given play what the offense is doing and why. And I haven't had the luxury to do that. And I can now influence special teams, not only in personnel, but what the opponent is doing and why. And so on a game day, it's completely different, but I find myself now framing, this is what's happening, these are the countermeasures, these are the possibilities on a broader scope. And my hope is that it will continue to show dividends and results. And certainly Nick and Kelly and Vic and Shane, the defensive side, it was so gratifying for me to not have made a defensive call and to see those guys who've all been with me for so long just kind of be the guardians of the way that we've done it and have success. So that might have been the best. I was happy for our players, but I was really happy for those guys, knowing that I was involved, but not at the core and not making those calls, and that they were capable.
No, I asked you after the game, but having the chance to review the 2 freshman defensive linemen, Redmond and Famui, how did they play, and what has their development been like?
Famui played fewer snaps but had more impact, and Redmond is becoming more consistent the more he plays. So the pace of the play, the physicality of the play, and the consistency necessary, he's stretching to meet those expectations and demands. It's still inconsistent, and he is still becoming an ACC football player, but they're both capable. The demand on conditioning, the demand on technique, the demand on assignments is still something that's just out of their reach, and they're trying to catch up to as fast as they can.
And I know you told us the story about telling your wife that you thought you would win.
She was shocked, by the way, because I normally am a little bit more of a whatever.
You normally aren't that bold.
I'm normally not. I normally don't say, yeah.
I'm curious, what have you seen in terms of the development of confidence from your staff, from your players, and how much has that changed from year 1, year 2?
I think the way to answer that is just the recalibration that's happened within myself and our staff now that we know clearer who we are. It took the whole first year to have even a basic idea of where the program and where our team really was. We made some inroads in year 2 to address that appropriately, and that showed in the record. And year 3 we're more clear than we were in year 2 of what has to happen and why. And so that's leading to confidence, meaning that we're clear about who we are. Right, Sun Tzu said, if you know yourself and you know your enemy, you'll never fear the result of 1,000 battles. So we're clearer now on who we are. Now that we've played ACC football for 2 years, we're clearer on who our opponents are, which means in general, through 4 games, and including last year, we're making better decisions with better plans that more effectively use our current personnel. And that has taken some time. I wish I could have accelerated it faster, but it's taken some time.
Bronco, we hear all the time about defense.
I should say taking some time. Taken actually would imply that it's done, taking time.
We hear all the time about defenses trying to make a team one-dimensional. When a team comes in one-dimensional, NC State doesn't run the ball very well. When they come in one-dimensional, what makes that work for them instead of, you guys taking something away?
Yeah, talent and execution. So they have good schemes, but who's involved in the schemes? The one that's delivering the ball and the ones that are catching the ball. When you have exceptional personnel, sometimes regardless of exact correct positioning, plays are still made. That's what's happening with NC State. They're making plays even when they're covered. They're making plays even if there's pressure. They're making plays even when it looks like on film, oh, the defense should be good here, but it doesn't end up that way. So they just have good players.
It was only one catch, but was that an important moment for Devontae Cross, who had gotten off to a slow start, and do you expect more from him than he's given?
We would love for Devontae to have a larger role as Joe Reed. As much as Devontae's catch was impactful, Joe Reed's touchdown, I would say in a similar vein, was more impactful for what we need from him. So Joe made a critical play at a critical time that put points on the board. So from Joe, and then it would go to Devontae, and then you saw a little touch of Tavares Kelly. That trio right there, when we can get that elevated to go with a high-performing Olamide and a high-performing Hassis, that then becomes more formidable, and we need that to happen as fast as we can. I've been working that way. We just saw a few signs in that game that kind of manifest.
Still on the side, Coach.
Yep.
You talked about having a clear vision of ACC opponents, and that doesn't apply to NC State, really. They haven't played them in 6 years, 5 times in 15 years. What's your familiarity with them, and how much work are you guys having to do this week?
Yeah, I have no familiarity. Last time I even paid attention to NC State, I was coaching at New Mexico. We went there and played, and that was a long time ago. I do know Dave from the coaches' meetings and know and respect the job he's done there. But really, when an opponent isn't on your schedule on any given year, you just forget about them because you have to be so engrossed in the opponents you are playing. So it's been a busy morning, familiarizing myself with schemes, with personnel, with history, and why they're doing what they're doing, how they got to that point, and so just now starting to kind of feel like I can talk maybe confidently or comprehensively about them, but that I wouldn't have been able to do that before this morning.
From what I showed, pretty impressive pursuit on Saturday. How are he and Redmond different as players?
Famui is more active and I would say more dynamic, and Redmond is more between the A-gaps. There's just going to be no movement, and so more physical and maybe more run-stopping oriented, just as a starting point.
Bronco, all ACC wins obviously are important. How important was it for you to get a comfortable win early in the season in terms of both confidence and getting a look at some of the younger guys like Armstrong you mentioned?
Yeah, really important, considering that if you go to last year and our ACC wins, and I'm going to try to remember them, North Carolina State, I think we had to sack the quarterback at the very end of the game to win. Georgia Tech, they were driving, and I think there was a sack on the last play to win. Duke might have been the same, right? This would be the first ACC game, at least in our staff's time, where we were able to separate from opponent and keep it that way. And that's not easy. And so that was, I think, significant. Certainly there are opportunities to explain that away based on perspective and how you choose to report it, but I think it's significant, and I think it was earned, and it was hard to do, but I think it was a really positive step for our program.
Bronco, you're at that 4-game mark into the 5th. It's kind of with this new red shirt rule. How many conversations are going on about guys? And then kind of as an aside, does the plan change, or is there a plan with Brennan based on what you saw on Saturday?
Yeah, I would love to say that the conversations have been extensive, but really we're playing players that we need to play to help us win games this year. That's where the program is, and Bobby Haskins is doing a nice job in the offensive line. We've already talked about our 2 freshman defensive linemen. Brennan Armstrong, I don't know how he can't play the rest of the season and not be available. And so, yeah, we're managing it the best we can. But really the stress point is immediate progress and trending upward versus long-term planning. And I don't think we're yet to the point where long-term planning can trump the immediate need. That's just where I currently am operating from.
You may have some wood to knock on here, but on the way up here, heard about Jimmy Garoppolo being out for the season. I guess 49ers quarterback. You have a quarterback who's broken his neck earlier, who dislocated his finger the other day, and then went out and hurdled a couple people. What do you tell him about that?
Yeah, I don't know. Just that we're a better team when he's healthy, and already he's smart with when he slides and when he goes out of bounds, and so that hasn't required much. And almost anything I say in addition might make him overthink some of those scenarios. So I think he's managing himself and our team really well. In fact, Robert and I were visiting this morning, and he's been one of the most consistent parts of our team in how he's played, which is atypical for a new starting quarterback.
Coach, you were referencing earlier about Olamide and Hasis's production being, kind of imperative that they do. What can they do specifically? Is it technique? Is it scheme? Is it when teams are game planning for a guy that had 247 yards receiving? Clearly they'll roll coverage to him, all that. What do you want to see from the two of them?
It's just consistency. So really Louisville did nothing to account for either one of them that was atypical. They just simply weren't as consistent as the week before. And sometimes that happens when players are building into new roles and they have significant games. Sustaining and maintaining that is sometimes a challenge. Our program is approaching a new area of growth, which means, yeah, that's new. And it's a little bit uncharted. And so part of my job is to help build in the messaging and consistency metrics and feedback to make sure that that each week is similar, rather than a highly productive week and then not so productive and then another high productive. And so we're kind of in that cycle a little bit right now, and that is part of growth. My messaging and immediate feedback on the metrics that I see, I think, has to be more blunt and more timely to help us in advance of maybe that.
Ryan Swoboda has worn 2 numbers and played 2 positions this year. Ultimately, would you like to move him back to tackle at some point? And if so, is replenishing the tight end pool a priority? Because it's going to be down to 1 after this year.
Yeah, Brian will be an offensive tackle for us. We like what he still practices there the majority of the time, and we really like what we see from him as an offensive lineman or potential offensive lineman. We like what he's doing blocking wise, and yeah, certainly it's been a unique challenge with when in the selection criteria and the attraction process of whom to take and at what positions, and sometimes it's just simply taking the best available. Even though a position need might be screaming for take someone, I won't do it just for the sake of taking someone. And so that's kind of led us to the situation we are. And I think we'll be able to address it, and there might be a workaround schematically for a while until we find the exact right tight end or tight ends we want. But offensive line to me is still a priority, maybe the biggest priority on the team in terms of recruitment.
Bronco, you mentioned last week that you were still kind of learning your offensive identity. How much did Saturday help solidify that?
I think every game and every series helps us solidify as to how we can not only score but maintain possession time. The second half was especially powerful in that we had a great time of possession advantage and we still scored. And so ultimately we want to be able to maintain and control the tempo of the game, and we'd really like to control the game period. And you can do that by moving the chains, methodically doing so, holding onto the ball. And man, when you start taking it away defensively, then yeah, that's a good combination. So we're becoming clearer, and this Saturday helped, I think, add another piece to that. Again, quality of opponents and different styles of play against us are still helping us shape what that's going to look like. And again, you'd say in year 3, how come? Well, because Bryce is our quarterback. And so it's a different system, and it's taking, we're still redefining and defining ourselves a little bit.
With Jordan Mack out, I think he does a lot of the calls in the middle and lines defensive linemen up and all that sort of stuff. Can Chris Peace do that from the outside, or do one of the young guys have to step up in that role when they go in there?
Both. Chris can do it from the outside, but Zane is capable inside, and all of our players are taught to do that. They're just have been used to hearing one voice, and that voice has had experience and been playing in there a lot. So there will be a significant change, and we'll miss Jordan at the highest level that you can miss someone. Now that we've said that, you go to the next person up, and that's where we are.
To follow up on that a little, are any of the outside guys candidates to move inside? Could they do that in a pinch?
A pinch is the right way to describe it. The positions are really unique and really different. So it's not my preference. A pinch, a really big pinch would be the way to, a pinch itself wouldn't be enough. A really big pinch would be what it would take.
Coach, to the offensive line, you've talked about the development you want to see. Can you talk about what you've seen mentality-wise? I think I witnessed Bobby Haskins driving one of the Louisville linebackers 10 yards to the point that that guy got annoyed and didn't want anything else, and we saw pancake blocks. Are you and Coach Tujague pleased with what's happening upstairs?
The two players that are most reflective right now of the culture that I would really like, offensive line-wise, Dylan Rankensmeyer and Bobby Haskins. So they're both relatively young, but Bobby is playing a significant amount, not only because he's blocking well, but his mindset. He likes to play, and he likes the physical part of it, and he likes to keep blocking guys, and he likes to, once he blocks one guy, find someone else to block. And then he usually thanks me after every practice and game for letting him do that. He likes running into people, and he's grateful that he gets to, which is kind of nice to be thanked every day.
Anything else? Chris has got one more question. Then we'll have Chris Peace up here.
Obviously, one way you can take a linebacker out and put a safety in. We haven't seen Chris Moore yet. He wasn't dressed on Saturday. What's his injury situation?
Yeah, he's still not healthy, and I don't know, and I haven't been told yet the exact return date. He's frustrated. We're all frustrated that it's taking this long. And man, there's been a lot of care and a lot of assessment going on. I wish I could be more clear when he's coming back. Man, we would love to have him right now, but I don't have a date yet or a time.
All right, thanks.
Okay, thanks.
Chris Peace.